All right, this is the Harmonious press. They purchase a stone is set into a wooden box, and the wooden box is filled with grain, and that allows you to level that stone out. Then the image is placed right here onto this bed, inked by hand. Paper goes in here, close the paper on top of the bed. Because this is original Harmonious equipment, I can't touch it. So I get close and gesture and all that kind of thing. Close it up, turn it around, which is just a little crank, a spindle with a barrel on it. It's got straps that connect to this box and allows you to position that box back and forth on these rails. All right, the business end of a press. This area right here. This thing is called the platen, rhymes with flatten. It's just a big block of wood that's going to push down on those inked letters and get the ink onto the piece of paper. Notice that that block of wood, it's only half as big as the bed. With a common press, it's a two-pull press. You have to position half of the bed under it, pull it, reset it. It's actually harder to reset it than it is to pull it. Because when you reset it, you got to lift the block of wood rather than just let it drop. Reposition the other half, pull it again, reset it again, then you can bring it out. Two pulls to make one sheet of paper. The problem with this thing is a hand press wants to push itself apart from the inside out. And even though this thing has huge timbers, this piece up here is called winter. There's another one down here called summer. They're literally 12 by 12, maybe a little bit bigger. They're a big piece of wood. If this were in its permanent location, we would additionally brace it to the ceiling because we're trying to get the force that's created by that screw. We want that force pushing right here, not pushing up and not pushing out. We want it just right here. The point I'm making is, for all of that construction, it's not very efficient. It pushes on a relatively small area. The other point I want to leave you with here is, it's static technology. Nobody's changing it. Nobody's improving it. We're just making them the same as we always have. Okay, now in terms of the Harmonists themselves, they don't print Bibles on it. They purchase Bibles. Okay. Printing a Bible, it's a long, complicated document. However, they printed literally hundreds of copies of their hymnal. If you were a Harmonist, the hymnal was issued to you. You treated it kind of like the way we treat Bibles. They didn't sit in the backs of the pews. It was a personal possession. You brought it with you. You took it back home again. So they printed literally hundreds of copies of their hymnal on this press. This is the oldest press in the United States that sits in its historic location. Its historic location, though, would not be this building. This building was always the tailor shop to the Harmonists, but somewhere here on the grounds. Okay, we're going to go next door. They're using it on the grounds here somewhere for hymnals and George Rack's religious teachings and community announcements. Meanwhile, back in Philadelphia, the very same Adam Ramage that not only built that press, but built more of those than anybody in the United States, is being confronted with the Industrial Revolution. There are people out in the world that are making iron hand presses, and this is Adam Ramage's iron hand press. He calls it his Philadelphia press. That's the model name. Here's how it works. Remember that paper handling piece called the tympan? And the little duck bills here, a little piece of cardboard, and they just sort of help you to nestle that paper right in the right spot. Then we close up the frisket. Be inked by hand with daubers. The person who did the inking job, they're known as the beater because it's a very aggressive, you know, bam, 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 top down. Then when you close the tympan onto the bed, that whole assembly now is called a coffin.
Oh, wow.
Thank you. No kidders, I'll do that line again with cam light under my chin. You saved them all, like 15 seconds of nonsense. Notice now, the platen is as big as the bed. It's a one-pull press. The big themes of the Industrial Revolution, themes of changes in materials, from wood to cast iron, changes in design. This thing looks a lot different than the thing that's like all of the other things for the last 350 years. the frame itself, instead of trying to make another iron rectangle out of iron rather than wood, he's made this A-frame truss. And that's going to focus the strength of this frame right here where the pressure against it is the greatest. You can see from this side, there's 2 layers of cast iron there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's trying to make where the force is the greatest against the frame, he's trying to make it the strongest there. It's maybe not perfect engineering, but when you think about nobody's tried anything different for hundreds of years, and now he's redesigning all of it. My favorite piece of re-engineering on this, it's hard to see right here, but if you step to the sides where you can see it in profile, you'll see it a lot better. That screw mechanism, it's okay, you get to touch this one, it's all right. That screw mechanism that's been the same for hundreds of years, he didn't try to improve it by maybe if I make the diameter wider and make the pitch of the threads different. He's gotten rid of the screw and he's replaced it with a series of levers, but he's been inspired by nature. Engineers sometimes call this biomimicry, where you copy life. And what he's copied, that's a human leg in the smash the soda can position.
Okay, yeah.
See, it's kind of slightly at repose, and when we operate it, all that happens is the leg straightens out, and it smashes the soda can.
That's
Try it out.
smart.
Go ahead and try it out, see what it takes.
I like how you
Yeah,
jump it first.
That's it. You'll slide
it?
around the floor, you
It
pull any
doesn't
harder.
lock into place?
Yeah. No, if you pull any harder, you're gonna move the whole thing
Okay.
across the floor. That is as far as it goes.
That's
Really,
amazing.
try it out.
Good.
Yeah, don't worry, when it stops, it's done. That's all. Yeah, check it out.
That's good exercise. You do that a lot.
She's asking for a card. Somebody actually do this. Most of the time is spent preparing those. It's a lot of this. And a little bit of this.
Really?
Most of it is spent getting ready. And then just a little bit of time applying, and then right back to the getting it ready.
So is the ink soaking onto this stuff, or is
Well,
it just...
Ink,
Okay.
and then get them ready. And
Jeez.
then apply the ink. But it's the getting them ready where 3/4 of the time is spent.
Jeez.
And trying to get it, there's an art to it.
Wow.
Eventually, you'll see the next press, we automate that. Everybody try it out. Everybody try it out.
Yeah.
That's neat.
I'm going to put one more in the world to try it out. Okay, I'm going to tell you a little story because y'all are dying to hear this story. Thanks for playing along.
No, this is awesome.
I grew up in suburban Detroit. That is where Greenfield Village and Henry Ford Museum. Have you been there?
No.
Greenfield Village and Henry Ford Museum. It's a 4-hour. My family's still there. It's a 4-hour and 15-minute drive from here. Go sometime. It is a museum and a historical village put together by Henry Ford in 1929 when he was effectively limitlessly wealthy. You know, so he moved buildings from around the world there and all that kind of thing. Anyway, at Greenfield Village and Henry Ford Museum, they have the small rocking chair that Abraham Lincoln was sitting in when he was shot at Ford's Theater.
We just watched a YouTube video on that. Was that this morning or was that last night? Yeah.
We saw the theater, and then the guy goes, "Oh, but I've been to this other museum where they have." And
It is Henry Ford
Yeah.
Museum, and right now that chair sits under a lucite box, and you can't get near it or
Right.
touch it, but you can look at it. This is the truth. I'm 58 years old. I grew up in the 70s in Detroit. In the 1970s, when you went with a school field trip to Henry Ford Museum, a curator would put on white gloves. They would take that chair off of a stand, they would set it on the floor, they would ask for a volunteer, and they would let one child come and sit in the chair.
No way.
Now, nobody's sitting in that chair.
Yeah, right.
Nobody's moving that chair around with gloves or whatever. That's why I say, work the press.
Yeah.
Now, here's the other one. At Henry Ford, I'm speaking to the young folks, but at Henry Ford Museum right now, they've got the Rosa Parks bus.
Oh,
It's
wow.
the right one. They found it in the field, but they know it's the right one because the driver kept a diary. And every day when he started his shift, he wrote down what bus he was driving. They took the driver's diary. They figured out, in other words, this isn't just a bus from Mississippi. This is the Rosa Parks bus. It's been fully restored.
Wow.
It sits in Henry Ford Museum right now. And if you go to Henry Ford Museum right now, the bus door is open. You can walk up on that bus. You can sit down in the seats. And after a couple people walk on the bus, A museum person will walk on that bus, and as they step onto the bus, they hit a small switch, and a tiny little spotlight turns on to exactly the seat where she was sitting.
Oh, that's amazing.
And sometimes there's somebody sitting there, but once there's a spotlight on it, you know that that was the spot. You can go get on that bus, because eventually they got the Wienermobile there too. You know, they got a Wienermobile there. You don't get to go on the Wienermobile. You get to look at it from behind a rope. Eventually, you're going to have to look at that bus from behind a rope. Go sit on that bus while you can sit on that bus.
Yeah.
You know what? It was being meant to be
Yeah.
because
But it could be better if you start telling stories about when they were young. So this is the Golding & Company of Boston, Massachusetts. This is the Golding Pearl. It is treadle operated. Platen. Platen again means flat surface, and the first two like this, but not like this. Jobber press. Now the reason it's a jobber press, it can only make things that big. It can make smaller, it can't make any bigger. But that's any business form that walks in the door, sales invoices, postcards, letterhead, envelopes, invitations, lots of things. That's why this is a jobber press. This will be covered in ink. The rollers here are going to pick up the ink from the disc, two rollers like the two blades on a razor, and then it's going to pull that ink across the face of the form, and it works like this. Blank paper in, wedding invitation printed, invitation out, blank paper in, invitation printed, wedding invitation out, blank paper in. You can get easily 40, 50 pieces per minute on this if you're operating smoothly. It's dangerous.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got to watch.
The problem's a spinning cast iron. This spot right here, where the cast iron chase meets the cast iron platen, press operators called that the snapper. And the problem wasn't that it snapped your finger right off. It didn't. It crushed it completely. You had to go down the street to the doctor and take it off for you. Eventually, to all this, you know what, if you guys want, step back here and watch this. You're familiar with steampunk, right? Okay. Steampunk is the idea of doing complicated things with not only without electronics, but without electricity. This is the aesthetic that steampunk aspires to. As long as that central steel axle keeps rotating, all of this mechanical choreography is going to continue. If you've ever ridden on a carousel horse, and the next time you're on a carousel horse, if you look directly above your head, you will see exactly this mechanism. That's a camshaft, and what it does is it turns rotational movement into oscillating movement. So again, you're on that horse, you look above you, you'll see an iron bar that's rotating, and that little camshaft mechanism is going to take that rotation and turn it into oscillation up and down. You can see it's quite dangerous. Open gearing over here, anything that would open those gears would be processed through them. Eventually they'll add things like a metal cowling over that. To the snapper, what's added is a little door, and this metal door appears from under the inking disc as the pieces come together. And as they come together, this door keeps pushing out, and it'll push my fingers away so they can't get caught in there. That's a great idea. Here's my only point about this. This is an 1879 patent. It's an 1895 construction. We've been snapping fingers for 16 years, and they added that door.
You know what this reminds me of? The top is a desk and it has the...
From 1875 until 1975.
Oh, wow.
They literally built this for 100 years. This one right here comes from 1893, and you're about to work it.
Oh, thank you.
Nice.
And those duckbills come in from this corner, and you'll get under all three of them.
Oh, okay.
Just kind of slide in, get all three of them. And then you're going to take this cast iron, you will not hurt it, I promise.
Oh, okay.
Just take that and you push it down at the bottom, it will go click, keep pushing until it clicks. Keep going.
What?
Click.
Oh,
There
I'm
you
like,
go.
is it gonna
Now,
click?
pop it out. Pull that out.
Oh, sweet.
It says the band name out there.
Oh, how cool is that?
They're beautiful.
Yeah, typeset that this morning for this occasion.
Oh, that's neat.
Nice.
It's quite common to have one of these in the corner because somebody comes in and they want 30 businesses. So what happened is over time, there were many folks that got their job or got their vocation of being a printer started as a hobby. In the 40s, 50s, 60s, in the heyday of like small neighborhood print shops, you know, where everybody had a little print shop. Very common name for a press shop at the time was Excelsior.
Really?
It wasn't that they're all called Excelsior, and it wasn't their franchisees. It was that you very commonly had a story that sounded like this. When I was 12 years old, I begged my parents to buy me a Kelsey Excelsior, and they got me one for Christmas when I was 13. I taught myself to set type, and I got a job as a typesetter when I was 16. I opened this place when I was 19. Think of it as like the cheap electric guitar in the Sears catalog.
Yeah.
Because of access to the ability to typeset, people learned the trade. And so this thing ended up launching 1,000 print shops.
Yeah.
And what did they call the print shop? Excelsior. Because that's where they started. You know, and they likely still had this thing in the back. You know what I mean? They were used to
Well, not like this.
Isn't that a lovely little story? Like a lovely little vignette about this thing.
Yeah.
So many of these were built for so long. If you go home and you search Kelsey Excelsior on eBay, not only will you find one, you'll find a bunch of them.
Really?
Usually what's missing is the inking disc because it separates that easily. And over the years, it's that easy for it to become separated from the body. But literally, they made this for 100 years. There are thousands of these still out there, you know, in mountain places.
That's like I miss the old Ditto machine.
Yeah.